What's up, guys? This morning I was reading in Hebrews. I came through to chapter 6, and I had read this in the New King James, which is the version I usually read. The past few days I was actually in the King James, and I love both of those translations. But I was looking for a little bit more understanding on one of the passages that I read in Hebrews chapter 6 today. And so I turned to the New Living Translation, which I have on my Bible, Blue Letter Bible app on my phone. I don't yet have like an actual physical Bible of the New Living Translation, so I'll have to read it from my laptop here. But I just wanted to share this one to you. I was looking at Hebrews chapter 6, verses 13 through 20. And again, this is the NLT version. So it reads, "For example, there was God's promise to Abraham. Since there was no one greater to swear by, God took an oath in his own name, saying, 'I will certainly bless you, and I will multiply your descendants beyond number.' Then Abraham waited patiently," and some of us are stuck on that point right now. "Then Abraham waited patiently, and he received what God had promised." Now when people take an oath, they call on someone greater than themselves to hold them to it, and without any question that oath is binding. God also bound himself with an oath, so that those who received the promise could be perfectly sure that he would never change his mind. Beautiful, love that. So God has given both his promise and his oath. These two things are unchangeable because it is impossible for God to lie. Therefore, because of that, we who have fled to him for refuge can have great confidence as we hold to the hope that lies before us. This hope is a strong and trustworthy anchor for our souls. It leads us through the curtain into God's inner sanctuary. Jesus has already gone in there for us. He has become our eternal high priest in the order of Melchizedek. And so there was several verses there, obviously, verses 13 through 20. A lot to chew on, I think, in that section of Scripture. But what really stuck out to me was like how God bound himself with an oath, to Abraham. Like he wasn't satisfied in a sense with just giving Abraham, the promise or like the word saying like this is where you're gonna go, you'll be in the promised land, you will be multiplied, and he says like I will certainly bless you. But he wanted to give him even more than that. So he gave Abraham enough for faith to latch onto it. So Abraham's faith was activated in a sense, and he latched onto this promise of God. But God actually took it a step further, and he says, I'm going to give you more than faith. I will give you more, and I will swear an oath by myself, because there's no higher name, no higher power or authority than myself. And that's what an oath is you swear by, the king, you swear by the president or whatever, you swear by God, and people misuse that a lot. But he wanted to give Abraham something even more. He wanted him to have full assurance. So not only did he promise Abraham that Abraham latched onto by faith, but he gave Abraham a promise, but he also gave him full assurance in there also taking an oath, swearing an oath on himself, of himself, by himself, to give Abraham even more faith, to give him even more to look forward to, and saying that your faith has told you that this will come to pass because I promised it, but now I'm going to give you something else so that you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt, without question, that it will come to pass. And while we today may not have like God swearing an oath to us on every promise as much as we'd like to, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that's like, God, I need another sign. Just tell me that this is you again, But while we may not be getting an oath for every promise of God, what he's done throughout Scripture is proven his character. What he said is I may not be giving you an oath for everything, but you have this word as evidence of my character, as evidence of who this promise is from. Now, this promise is to you, it's for you, but it's by me. And if I am the author, you can see my character throughout Scripture. You can see my faithfulness. He is faithful to complete what he started. And so we may not get an oath every time, but what we do get is full assurance by knowing God's character. And how do we know God's character? How do we learn that we can trust God? Well, it starts with his word. It starts with everything that he's written, because throughout Scripture we have evidence of his character. We have evidence of his heart for his people, of what kind of a heart or a nature that God has. And the only way that we're going to find that out is through Scripture. He's given us this God-breathed, inspired word, not only of history, but literal accounts of his interaction with humanity, so that we can get a sense of what the essence of God's character is. And then the second part is through prayer. And the whole point, in a sense, and this is a perspective or an opinion, but a big point of prayer is really just to spend time in communion with God. Like in the garden, Adam and Eve, like they would just spend time with God. Like before the fall, they were just there in the cool of the day, walking with God, talking about how great creation is and all these different things. And the whole purpose that they were using that communion for was just to spend time with Him. And so how do we develop an understanding, a greater understanding of God's character? Well, it comes from, number one, primarily His Word, because He's given us this for instruction, edification, correction, rebuke, all of these different aspects, and also to learn His character, to see how He's played out His heart throughout time in the Old Testament and in the New Testament through Christ. And the second part is prayer. So we spend more time in prayer just throughout the day, praying to God, thanking God, say, hey, God, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm grateful for, this is beautiful, thank you for the view. Last night He took me outside, He got me up out of bed last night just to go look at the view, the view of the city outside my window. And He said, I was like trying to go to bed and I could feel the presence of the Lord. And I was like, what is it, God? And He said, stand up. And I was like, okay. So I stood up and He's like, get dressed to go outside. And I was like, okay. It was like 11:30. And so I went outside, and put a coat over my PJs and like went outside and I just looked at the city and that was it. He just wanted me to see this beautiful sight and to behold how beautiful it was. He just wanted to inspire joy in me. And then He said, okay, go back inside. So I went back inside and He said, good night, Scott. And it was that simple. Like it was just a little bit of spending time in prayer and communion and fellowship with God to understand His character and His heart and His love for each of us uniquely. So I pray that God would bless you with a greater understanding of His heart and His character. And I would encourage you in noting that comes from spending time in His Word. So the more time that you spend in the Word, the more time that you'll get God in you. You'll get a greater understanding. Put that seed in there and He will water it. He gives the increase. So I'd encourage you guys to just spend some time in Scripture today, reflect on this passage as well, Hebrews chapter 6, verses 13 through 20, and just see what the Lord would speak to you with this. So I hope this blesses you guys. God bless you.